how do I make my thumbnails? That has to be like one of the most frequently asked questions from you that I've got. So I thought I'd show you. What do you think about the cap? Forge. This is something that you will definitely see more of soon enough. I can't reveal too much, but it might be something that you'll be able to buy. So thumbnails are definitely one of the most fun things that I enjoy doing here on YouTube, and I thought I'd show you like the whole process of how I go about to like actually do my thumbnails, from the actual shooting of the thumbnails to the editing of the thumbnail. So for this video, I'm thinking that I'm gonna hold my computer like this, and then I'm gonna like point at it like that, and then we're gonna like Photoshop something cool looking onto the screen of the computer. And yeah, I think that will look cool. So let's see if we can set up lights. Let's start the camera here and see if we can connect. Control with smartphone. Connection. Connect. Okay. Now we have connected to the camera, so now we can see what the camera sees, which is great because this let us check the composition of the camera to actually get the right feeling of the photo that we're going to take. So as for the main light when I'm taking my photos, I'm using the Aperture 120D Mark II that Aperture sent over to me to do a review of, and I am really satisfied with this light so far. It is a fantastic video light. I also really like that you have this remote that you can like adjust everything that you want on the go. As for the rim light, I'm gonna use the Godox SL60, and this light is something that I highly recommend if you're just starting out, or if you just want to have like a really good video light, because it's super cheap and you get a lot of bang for the buck with this light. And the softbox here is a Aperture Light Dome Mini 2, which is a great one, and I also have a grid to be able to like direct the light as I want it. And on the main light, I'm using the huge 120 centimeter softbox, but it does give us this really like soft lighting, because the bigger the softbox, the softer the lighting will be in your photos. So this is really good to have as a key light for our photos, and this is going to give us like a little bit more like harsh rim light for our photos. So now we want to make sure that we have the lighting so it doesn't like give us too much light up here. And what you want to think of when you're adjusting the lights is that the light is going to come off this rim, and since I'm thinking that my face is going to be a little bit turned towards the main light, we can have it like so that the fall off is not like entirely in our face and the light is not entirely directed to our face. All right, let's see if we can take a good looking thumbnail. As I'm composing thumbnails, I try to think that my face or the subject that I want to show off is going to be on one of the intersections of the rule of thirds, to make sure that it grabs the attention of you as the viewer when you're watching my thumbnail on YouTube. It's kind of funny because I always feel so dumb when I'm thinking thumbnails, sitting there like it's weird, but it looks good. So I'm actually kind of satisfied with one of them. So I think we're gonna jump into the editing process. Here we go. So I'm personally using Adobe Lightroom Classic CC for this. So we're gonna go to Library, and then we are going to go to Import. So when all the photos are imported, the first thing that I do is to like scrub through them and mark them depending on which photo that is good or not. So usually what I do is just hit spacebar pressure and then I go through one by one, and if I find a photo that I like, I just hit 5 to give it a 5-star rating. All right, so now that I've gone through all the photos, then I want to filter the photos to see only the ones that I chose. So we're gonna go down here and I'm gonna hit rated. And I kind of like the last one, and I kind of like this one. I don't really know which one I'm gonna go for just yet. The first thing that I do is to go up to the Develop tab, and then what I do is that I adjust the crop to make it a 16:9 to make sure that you have the widescreen fit for a thumbnail. And this is where you can like adjust the photo to make it like fit the way that you want to have it. All right, we got a good crop, so now we're gonna just start doing the different types of edit that I do to my thumbnails. Usually what I do is try to drag down the highlights to like as far down as you possibly can, and then we're gonna drag up the shadows, and then we're gonna go to the clarity slider, and we're gonna drag this one up as well to give it that like a little bit of cartoonish look. And then we're gonna scroll all the way down to the blue primary, and I'm gonna drag this towards the left, and then we're gonna increase the saturation of this one. You can like adjust depending on what kind of looks good for your kind of thumbnails. Then we're gonna go up again. We are going to go to the HSL, and we're gonna go to orange, and we're gonna drag down the luminance and increase the saturation a bit. And then we're gonna go to the curves, and we're gonna start by dragging up the shadows, and then go to the midtones and drag it down, and then go to the top up here and drag this one up so that it pops within the highlights. As you can see, we don't want to do it too much, we just want to drag it up slightly. And then we're gonna go back up, and we're gonna drag the blacks to the right as well. There we go, now it's starting to get somewhere. And we're gonna scroll down, we are gonna go to the blues, and then we're gonna drag up the luminance on this all the way, like just all the way up. And then we're gonna go to cyan, and then we're gonna do the same, see if we can increase it to make it a little bit brighter, you know, for YouTube. So usually what I try to think of is to make the thumbnail really, really vibrant and really like eye-grabbing with the colors and luminance and exposure, and try to make it like pop out when you're scrubbing through the YouTube feed. And one thing that you can do this with is with the vibrance slider. So we're gonna drag this up, like way up to like 53. That looks kind of good. All right, so this is the before and after. You can see we've come a pretty long way, but we're not done yet because there's still like a little bit of stuff that we had to do to make sure that we give it this like special kind of look. So we're gonna go back to the HSL and the luminance, and then we're gonna drag up the luminance slightly so that we brighten it up. And we're gonna go back up to vibrance, and we're gonna drag this up, and we're gonna go up to the clarity slider, and we're gonna drag down a little bit more, and we're gonna go up to the blacks and drag them up as well. The shadows, drag them up, and then go back to the blacks. We're gonna like adjust this to make sure that we get a good look off everything. Let's go down to the tone curve once again, and then drag the shadows up a little bit more, and then see if we can like raise the midtones ever so slightly. There we go. And you know what? I'm actually thinking that we're kind of done to open this within Photoshop. So when you're done in Lightroom, then you want to like right click, and then we're gonna choose Edit in Adobe Photoshop CC 2019. So the first thing that I do is hit Command J to duplicate the layer, and as you can see, my computer is really dirty. So this is something that we gotta fix because I wasn't smart enough to like dust it off before we took the photos. So we're gonna hit J, and then we're gonna choose the spot healing brush, and then we're gonna zoom in, and we're gonna increase the size, and then we're gonna like start painting on all the different dots that we can see on the computer, and try to remove as much of it as possible. This is why you should definitely dust off your computer screen before taking a photo. But if you're anything like me, then you are forgetting this because you are thinking that, oh well, I'm gonna fix that in post. So what I want to do now is that I want to replace the face of my talking head shot with the thumbnail. So we're gonna choose the YouTube tips thumbnail. We're gonna drag it in, and then we're gonna just resize it down. Hold Command, and then we can adjust the perspective of this to make sure that it actually fits the screen. So we're gonna keep on resizing. It actually looks pretty good, but there is some things that we need to do to this to make sure that it looks even better. And you can also see that down here we have some of the like underlaying layer visible still, so that's kind of a bummer. But we're gonna hold Shift, and then we're going to drag this down. And then we're going to create a mask by pressing this button. And the reason for that is because I want to mask out like this part, just below here. Not so that you can like see the video underneath, but just so that you get a hint of the like playback thingy. And now we are going to add some blur to this, because as of right now it doesn't really look like it is like in the photo. It doesn't look like a composite. So we're going to duplicate this. We're going to hit Command J. We're going to right click this, and then we're going to choose rasterize layer. And then we're going to go up to filter, and then we're going to choose blur, and then we're going to choose lens blur. And then we're going to try to match the blurriness of the photo like with the foreground here. There we go. It actually looks pretty decent, and we're gonna just like mask out a little bit of the layer beneath here. And then on the layer that we just blurred out, we are going to make a gradient mask so that it fades from like blurred out to being sharp. So we're gonna choose gradient, and then we're gonna make sure that we have black to transparent, and we're gonna choose the layer mask, and then we're gonna drag it from here to somewhere around there. That actually looks pretty darn good. So what I want to do now is that I'm going to add a curves layer, and I'm going to drag down the midtones a little bit, and then I'm going to add another curves layer, and I'm going to drag up the midtones and the shadows, and then I'm going to drag down the whites, and then we're going to go to the other curves layer once again. Choose the mid-tones of that and drag down, adjust the shadows, and you know what? I'm starting to feel kind of satisfied with this. So now we're going to add a hue/saturation layer, and then we're going to increase the saturation and drag it ever so slightly towards the left-hand side, maybe like -1. And we're going to choose the blue. Drag the blues down slightly, but increase the lightness of the blues. And then choose the reds and desaturate slightly, like -10. And now we're gonna resize the photo to make sure that it like fits the 920 by 1080. So we're gonna go to image, then we're gonna choose image size, and I'm gonna choose 1920 by 1080, and I'm gonna hit OK. So to send this back to Lightroom, we're just gonna hit Command S. So what we can do now is to do the final adjustments to give that cartoonish look that I kind of have in my photos. So to do that, we're gonna drag up the clarity slider just a bit, and then we're gonna like drag down the blacks, and then we can reduce the saturation slightly to like -8 or -10 even, and then we can drag up the vibrance of the photo. And now it starts to look a little bit more cartoonish. And then we're gonna go to the curves. We're gonna drag the midtones like ever so slightly upwards. And then we're gonna go back up to the blacks, and we're gonna drag those up. We're gonna reduce the highlights and go down again to the blues. And then we're gonna increase the luminance to make sure that it brightens up the background. And then we're gonna go to the oranges, and then we're gonna drag this down, and we're gonna drag the saturation down. And then we are going to go to clarity. We're going to increase that all the way up to the top. You know what? I actually think that this is a pretty dope thumbnail. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that you found it useful and that you learned some stuff in this video. And if you did, please do give it a thumbs up, because it does make a huge difference. And if you haven't subscribed, that'd be highly appreciated as well, because, you know, I would love for you to join in on the channel and have a good time and hang around with me when I'm doing my stuff. That would be dope. So if you want to do that, it's gonna be up here or down here. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. It means a lot, and until next time, take care.